And with that, I will now ask our academic experience panel to join us. We are going to have two of our current students and two professors join us to give you a sense of what academics are like here at St. Thomas University. So Brianna kind of mentioned the classroom experience and how that impacted her involvement both inside and outside of the classroom. I'll ask our professors and students to pick up on that. You'll see that Mike has also launched another couple of polls there, a poll with a couple of questions, I should say. We'll ask you just to answer those while our panelists are signing in here. And what I'll do, perhaps I'll just give you a moment here to answer that poll while I'll start with Dr. Fredericks and maybe ask her to introduce herself, and then we'll go around the panel. And if each person could introduce themselves and say a few words about what you do and why you're here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Erin Fredericks. You can call me Erin. I teach in the Department of Sociology here at STU, and I did my undergrad at St. Thomas as well. My pronouns are she, her. And I'm here today because I want to talk a little bit about why STU is so unique. The work that I do is on health and gender. I work specifically with queer, trans, and non-binary youth and mental health promotion. And STU has been such a fabulous place for me to do this work. And I hope to share more with you about that when we chat. Thanks, Ryan.
Moving along, I guess, with our other professor, Dr. Shannon Brooke Murphy.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Shannon Brooke Murphy. I am the endowed chair in human rights in the Human Rights Department here at St. Thomas University. I'm an assistant professor here. And I want to say that, like Brianna, I was also the first in my family to attend university. So I know something of possibly the anticipation and the nervousness that you may be facing as you as you face the year ahead. Prior to coming to STU, I had about a 20-year career as a human rights practitioner. I was primarily working within the Irish Parliament. I lived in Ireland, and there I worked on promotion and implementation of the human rights provisions of the Good Friday Agreement, which is the British-Irish peace agreement, and that is still ongoing. So I came to St. Thomas University a few years ago in 2019, and I teach Introduction to Human Rights. I teach Human Rights Theory. I teach our course on the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I also coordinate our human rights internship program, and I teach human rights advocacy and activism. For my own academic research, I work in an area of around extrajudicial enforcement of human rights, and my book, The Human Right to Resist in International and Constitutional Law, is being published by Cambridge University Press next year. And I'm looking forward to answering all the questions you may have, and thank you very much for having me this morning.
Thank you very much. Ethan, over to you.
Good morning. My name is Ethan Narlin. I'm a third-year student here at STU. I study great books and political science. I'm a part of the MOOC Corp program, just like Brianna was. I'm also an admission. I work here at the admissions team. I work at the writing center, and I run for the STU cross-country team. And I'm really excited to chat with you guys about the academic experience here at STU and what it's like to be a student here at St. Thomas.
Thank you very much. Maria.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Maria Sidrow, and I am a third-year international student from Quito, Ecuador. I am majoring in economics and minoring in Italian and international relations. And I'm involved in clubs like Enactus. I was involved with the International Students Association, and now I also am here as a campus tour ambassador, and I am so happy to answer any of the questions you might have today.
Wonderful, thank you. And you'll see that Mike from behind the scenes has launched the answers to the poll that we had up. So we have a good mix again, pretty much Yeah, we have a good number who have a good sense of what they hope to study, a few that are still trying to figure things out. And I will say, and I was actually thinking about this when Brianna was speaking about the different academic interests that she ended up with, and I'd be interested in hearing from Maria and Ethan on this during the panel, but how many times I changed my mind based on a really interesting class that I had with a professor that I wasn't necessarily expecting to take more courses in that subject area, but all of a sudden with one great class, it can also be a snowball effect. So for those of you who are still just trying to figure things out, it's great. And then the second question there, you'll see the subject groupings that people are most interested in. So a good mix there also. Wonderful. So let's just get right into it then. We've had a number of questions come in already. I'll go back in the same order and I'll start with Dr. Fredericks. Why do you like teaching at STU in particular, at St. Thomas University in particular?
Yeah, so I used to teach at larger universities in a bigger city. And in those classes, what happened, because we had graduate programs or more graduate programs, it would be a very large class size, so 200 students. And I would basically walk into class, give a lecture from slides that came with the textbook, and then my graduate course assistants would do all the meetings with the students and all the grading. And so I never met any of my students when I was teaching there. Here at STU, I spend a lot of my time getting to know students. I can change the classes around a little bit so they fit with people's learning needs and their preferences and the topics that they want to cover. I get to know what students love and watch them move through undergrad and into graduate programs and into their careers. And it really does have a different sense of meaning to connect with students on campus and to understand a bit more how to support their learning and how to help them reach the goals that they want to.
Great, thank you. So next question is coming in for a student. So maybe I'll mix it up. Maria, you went second as a student, so I'll get you the first question. What is your preferred method of studying? So the question really was more about like, what's a good way to study while being at university? So what's your preferred method?
I would say that my preferred method is going over the course content like a few weeks before if I have a test or a midterm or something, and then like prepare like questions that I think that might show up in like a test. Also, I do feel that the transition from high school to the university can be a bit different. But for example, I used the student success coach office during my first year because I didn't know how to tackle like multiple choice questions correctly. And Kath, the student success coach, really gave me amazing tips that I still use now. So I strongly recommend that if you're a bit concerned that you don't know what your study method is or how you are more productive, you should definitely visit Kath.
Anything, I'm going to put a little bit of a twist on that question. Where is your favorite place to study on campus, or maybe even your top couple of places to study on campus?
That's a great question. STU is a really beautiful campus and there's lots of great places to study. However, my favorite place is the second floor of Dr. Daniel O'Brien's study hall. From there, there's these huge windows that go floor to ceiling over 2 floors. And from the top floor, you can see like the river and the walking bridge here in Fredericton. And it's really beautiful, which is a good thing because, you know, it's beautiful. It's a little distracting maybe for me. Maybe I'm looking out the window more than I'm studying. But it's a really quiet place to get lots of work done. And STU is really kind of a great spot to come onto campus and to be able to see other students who are working really hard. And so a place like Dr. Daniel O'Brien Study Hall is a good spot to get lots of work done.
And actually the campus tour that we'll be doing a little bit later will feature the study hall for those. So I would encourage those watching to stay on later and be able to see where Ethan's favorite spot is for studying. Dr. Murphy, I'm curious. I am curious, but I also had a question from a student just asking about and I'm not even sure what the mix of your academic delivery has been this semester, but the difference between online and remote and in person. And how that might be a unique opportunity for students who are considering St. Thomas, in so much as there's lots of other places that are doing the mix, but is St. Thomas doing things a little bit different?
Okay, well, the first thing that I would say is that we have tried this year, where possible, to do live in-person teaching. Everybody was really anxious. I think both students and professors, after our fully online year last year, everybody wanted to get back in front of each other again. So in my experience, and certainly within the Human Rights Department, it has been primarily in-person teaching. Now, of course, we take the public health precautions that are necessary. Everybody wears masks in the classroom. We have physical distancing within the classroom. But so that's what we've been focusing on doing. That said, in the prior year, we were all fully trained in fully asynchronous course delivery, and we found that to be quite successful. The students that I had in human rights last year did at least as well as the ones I'm having this year and the ones I had the year before, who were doing the in-person format. So I think we managed to put that together well. So I would say that we are prepared to do synchronous online, asynchronous online, or fully in-person teaching as conditions dictate. So that's how I'd answer that question. Perhaps Dr. Fredericks has a different experience within the sociology department.
In sociology, it's similar. One of the things that we're trying our best to do at STU, and I think that we are designed to do because of our small class sizes, is respond to student needs in some way. And so I'm teaching in person, for example, but I'm live streaming and recording my classes because there are a number of students who are international and their visas have been delayed because of the pandemic, or maybe someone has to miss a few classes because they have to get tested for COVID. And so we're trying to keep it as accessible as possible while we navigate the pandemic, so that everybody can engage in the way that's possible for them. And so far, I think it's been working really well, and I'm glad that we can adapt in that way to meet our students' needs.
And actually, that's a great cue up for the next question that came in, was a question about how accessible are professors at St. Thomas for students. So maybe I'll look to Maria or Ethan first, and if you have any comments on that from your experiences.
Yeah, for sure. I won't speak for Dr. Fredericks or Dr. Shannon Brooke Murphy, but in my experience here at STU, professors are very, very eager to meet with students. It's one of the really great experiences of STU is having something like a mentor for a professor who's looking to kind of guide you in your academic career through your BA. And so oftentimes professors will have something that's called office hours, and you can make appointments during those office hours or poke your head into their office, and they're happy to meet with students to talk about course content, any questions that you might have along with the course. Actually just had a meeting with a professor yesterday, and we talked about my essay that I'm writing coming up for my international relations class. And it was a really fruitful meeting where you get that one-on-one time with a professor who's a leader in the field, and they're walking you through your essay. That's an experience that not a lot of students get in their undergrad. And so we're really fortunate here at STU to have that access to experts in fields that you're studying in your undergraduate degree. And so I'm really happy to have that experience here at STU.
And actually, Ethan, while you were speaking, a direct question came in for you, but I'm also going to ask Maria a similar question. Ethan, the specific question for you was, how do you balance your training as a varsity athlete and your academics?
Yeah, that's a great question. Being a student athlete at STU is really fun because you get to represent St. Thomas University, which is an institution I really love. In terms of balancing that, the great part is here at STU, they'll give you the schedule far ahead of time, so you get the opportunity to kind of make sure that nothing's overlapping with classes or study time. And the best part is my coaches so far in my athletic career here at STU have been super understanding that school comes first, that my degree is very important to me, and I really try to excel in my learning here at STU. And so the coaches are really understanding that that comes first. But you find the time to make sure you get your training in, whether that's going for runs in the mornings before class or making sure that you're doing it after class. But I find it very doable. I find it to be a really fruitful experience. And for me, someone who, physical activity is something that's like a stress reliever, and it's really good for my mental health to be out and running outside. It's just been a really great experience for me, and it's helped me kind of be more focused when I'm in class. And yeah, so it's been very doable, and the coaches are super understanding.
Wonderful. Maria, I'm going to come back to you in a moment around Enactus. So that's a little hint about what's coming up next. But before we do that, Dr. Murphy, I had a question because you referenced your experience in Ireland, and a question about the classroom experience, having not only students like Maria from around the world, but also faculty from around the world, and what that brings to the classroom and the campus, in your opinion, or your experience, I guess, even.
Okay, just to think for a moment about how to approach that question, Ryan. Well, I would say that one thing that I try to do in my classes, having had the advantage of having lived in Europe for almost 20 years before returning to Canada, because I'm originally from Canada, I'm from Toronto, is to open out that experience for students. So I try to bring in as much comparison as possible. So we may do it this way in Canada or North America, or think about it this way, but in Europe, this is the perspective. So I think I try to bring that to my teaching. But as you pointed out, another thing that enriches the classroom is having international students who bring their experiences and their perspectives into the classroom. So I often find that some of the most eye-opening contributions made by my students will come from the international students who can do the same thing, who can say, well, my experience coming from Latin America, or my experience coming from the Caribbean, or my experience coming from Asia. And I know that among the students who are like me, also from Canada, really appreciate hearing those different perspectives, and it really greatly enriches the discussions that we have on the various topics in class.
Thank you very much. And I think that's really important, especially when we think about the number of our students who come from New Brunswick and the Maritimes, that in fact, their classroom experience will be global, both in terms of their students and the maybe like for yourself who worked and studied abroad, but also for many of our faculty members who incorporate their research from outside of Canada or from across Canada. So there's really great opportunity for students to get that. And so speaking of international, Maria, I mentioned Enactus, you mentioned Enactus earlier, and I don't know that many of our prospective students would be familiar with that. So maybe you could just speak to that and how that experience, or how your clubs and societies experience kind of impacts your classroom experience.
Yeah, for sure. That's an awesome question. So basically, Enactus is like an international organization that like creates branches in like different universities across the world, and like you have competitions. But basically, Enactus tries to like create projects that will better the community and increase the quality of life of your community. So for example, this year we have different projects. Each of them tackles different problems, but we have projects that tackle financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and like environmental cleanup around the city of Fredericton. So I would definitely say that Enactus has enriched my experience here at STU, especially because I am an economics student. I get to put in practice whatever I've learned in my economics classes. But at the same time, like we have people on our team that study human rights, psychology, and they put in practice also what they've learned in classes. So it's basically like a hands-on experience that makes your degree a lot better because you practice everything that you learn in a class. I would also say that we've received so much support from faculty and staff. Whenever we have any questions, they are super willing to like sit with us, have a chat with us, and definitely like that also makes your experience a lot better because they can provide you with like their knowledge and support. So I would definitely say that Enactus will make your experience, your university experience, so much better.
Great, thank you. So another question that came in, I'll read it specifically. When it comes to this, to safe LGBTQIA+ spaces on campus, what kind of locations are accessible for us at STU? So, Aaron, maybe I'll go to you first with a big smile on your face that I'll let you jump in there. And then if either the students have or anyone else has comment, that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, at STU, we're actually really proud of the percentage of our students that come from the queer, trans, and non-binary community. We have one of the highest populations of queer, trans, and non-binary students at any university in Canada. And we think that that reflects our dedication to diversity and inclusion on campus and the types of activist students that we draw. So there's tons. I would say that most of our campus is a safe space because of that. And certainly we offer safer spaces training that many faculty and staff and student staff have taken that helps them learn language and anything that they might need to know to better work with members of this community. So we also have the 203, which is a drop-in center at the sub, which is on UNB campus, but it serves students from STU, UNB, and the New Brunswick Community College. And so folks can drop in there all day and study and get information about the community and meet other people. They run programming and events there. They have a library and all kinds of things. We also are one of the only universities in Canada that has a student advisor specifically for this community. And so she can provide counseling, advocacy support, and all kinds of other information that people might need. We also have programs to help you change your name on IDs and on class lists, and all kinds of other things that you can get involved in, like research projects that I'm working on and that other faculty are working on this topic. So I would say this is a great choice if you're looking for a campus that not only includes but really celebrates queer, trans, and non-binary students' contributions.
Great, thank you very much. Dr. Murphy, human rights is a program that many students who are coming directly out of high school may not have had the opportunity to be exposed to before. So it's a good example of many of the areas or the disciplines that we have that may not be offered in a high school program. I'm wondering if you might be able just to speak to a student who might be interested in a subject area like human rights that's not offered in their high school. What type of preparation would they need in order to take a first-year course?
Thanks, Ryan. Well, any student can take our Introduction to Human Rights course. And in fact, we find that we have quite a diverse student group. Well, let's take, for example, the Introduction to Human Rights students that I'm teaching right now. We have students who don't have any idea what their major might be. We have students who know they want to be lawyers and plan to go to law school. We have students who know they want to be social workers, teachers, law enforcement officers across the spectrum, whether it's from policing to parole officers to border guards to prison guards. We have students who want to be sociologists, Dr. Fredericks. So I would say you don't need any special preparation to take the Introduction to Human Rights course at all. And the students who decide to major in human rights, they generally decide on three major career tracks in our experience. They would go the legal track. So a lot of students use the human rights program as like a pre-law preparation, even though it's not formally pre-law. Others use it as a springboard to go on to do graduate research, so master's programs, both in Canada and internationally. And others use it as a springboard to work directly in the human rights field. And I want to take, for example, a graduate that we're very proud of last year, Emilia Gutierrez. I hope she won't mind me naming her specifically. She was an intern, well, she was a research assistant of mine, but she also took my internship course, and I placed her at the New Brunswick Human Rights Commission, where she impressed them so much that they hired her directly out of graduation. So she was working the summer within weeks of graduating from St. Thomas University, and she's already been promoted there to education officer, and she's not even a year out of finishing her degree. So I would say no special preparation required, just an open mind and an open heart. That's all we really need for students that are interested in human rights study.
Great, thank you. Maria, back over to you. We have a attendee who is watching from somewhere in South America. Didn't say where, but they said they're from South America as well. And she's asked you, what do you think about the English language adaptation during the first semester?
Yes, for sure. That was also a concern that I had during my first year at STU. I would say that either you can take like the English as a second language courses that counts towards like credits for your degree. I would find that if you're extremely nervous or concerned, definitely do that. However, I didn't take them and I think I've been doing well so far. But I would say that like people are never gonna be mean if you ever make a mistake. Like they actually like ignore it and don't make you feel uncomfortable, and like you can always ask them like, what does this mean, what is like this common word that you're saying I don't understand, and they will never be like mean or like make you feel uncomfortable, as I mentioned before. So definitely like don't be afraid to like raise your hand in class and like participate because of that. Also like professors are very kind and they know that English is not your first language, so they will acknowledge that and praise that you're actually making such a big effort to like put those barriers aside and participate in their class and like communicate effectively as best as you can. So definitely STU is a very welcoming environment, and that's not a reason to like feel nervous or overwhelmed.
I've had an opportunity to work with international students for a number of years who have taken advantage of the English as a second language or English for academic purposes classes that we have, and they are credit classes. So they count towards your degree, which is not necessarily common at a lot of other universities. So you actually can take these classes that are designed for those who are academically admissible and who have an intermediate level of English language proficiency, but maybe need that little extra help and still get credit. And then kind of the next part of that is, Ethan, I'll look to you because you referenced that you work at the writing lab. And so, I mean, I've seen not only international students who have looked to the writing lab to assist, but also Canadian students or students, I should say, students for whom their first language is English and they've been studying English. Just maybe you could speak a little bit about how the Writing Center can help students in their classroom.
Yeah, for sure. So here at St. Thomas, we have a writing center, and a large portion of our student population uses the writing center. When you're doing a liberal arts degree, there's often a lot of papers that you have to write, as both Dr. Fredericks and Dr. Shannon Brooke Murphy can attest to. And a part of that is, having a second pair of eyes on a draft, or having someone kind of guide you through the planning process of an essay is just really fruitful, especially when you're writing a lot of essays. And so what's so great about the Writing Center is that students, no matter, whether you're having difficulty in a certain class or you're really excelling, students have this opportunity to kind of get a second pair of eyes and to have, another student who's been trained in everything from citation styles to specific grammar questions, can kind of have a second look at your paper. And so it's definitely not a taboo to access the Writing Center. The way that I actually got the job as a Writing Center tutor was I was one of the main customers at the Writing Center. I went for every single paper in my first year. And after a while, they said, you know what, maybe, we've seen your writing throughout your first year here at STU. Maybe you should apply to become one of our Writing Center tutors. And so it's a great way to kind of, become a better writer, understand the gifts and the skills that are, associated with writing. And so, as a student, if you have questions about your writing or you just want a second pair of eyes on your assignment, the Writing Center is a great resource here at STU to kind of have that opportunity.
There's that snowball effect
Absolutely.
mentioned earlier. That's great. And then actually, for those of you watching, Heather McDonald will be joining us in the next panel a little bit later to speak more about the Writing Center. Dr. Fredericks and Dr. Murphy, I had a really good question come in from a student. And I know we've had this type of concern before from students who might be, just a little worried about their academic performance in their first year. So a student who shows up in your class, they're keen, they're ready, but they may just not be performing as well as they're used to in their previous studies, whether it's high school or maybe they've taken a leave from studies for a while and they're back in the university, because we certainly have students who return to studies after a bit of a time away. I'm curious, the question really comes down to, like, how do you work with those students who may be, I don't know, stumbling out of the blocks a little bit, but you know that they have it in them, and you want to help them a little bit. Either one of you, I guess, who wants to jump in first?
I can jump in first. So I think one of the big things is that I give out a student info form at the beginning of my courses where students can sort of tell me what their worries are or their concerns. And then in intro, every Wednesday, I teach Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I do a university skills activity where we actually practice a skill that folks will need to be successful in their courses. And so we try to build in opportunities to learn skills that can help you succeed right into the class format. But on top of that, I give students the opportunity after the first assignment, and the first assignment's always worth just a small amount. So it's kind of a practice run to see where any issues might lie. Then folks can make an appointment to meet with me one-on-one, online or in person, and we'll go through the assignment and identify, any struggles the student had and where those issues are coming from and what skill gaps might exist. And then we make a plan to build up that skill set so that the student can reach the goal that they're looking to achieve. And so we're happy to work with people to refer them to on-campus resources and to read drafts and things like that so that folks can meet those goals.
Yeah, I would say very similar to what Dr. Fredericks just shared. One of the things that I do is in all my courses actually is I emphasize from the very first class the amazing asset that is the writing center and the student success coach. We did not have those services available at the University of Toronto, which is where I went, a massive school with loads and loads of resources, but we didn't have those available. And I find it just amazing that St. Thomas University does make those available to students. So I try to emphasize very early on, even the best students, whether you're struggling, whether you're feeling insecure, or whether you are just wanting to reach the top of your game, the Writing Center and the Student Success Coach can help students at any level. So I strongly encourage students not to feel shy, no matter what level they're at. They can get something out of those services to help improve their performance. And of course, like Dr. Fredericks said, when I try to give very specific, constructive feedback. I try to focus on a few main things that the student will want to try to work on to get a better grade next time. And I strongly encourage students to come and see me during my weekly office consultation hours. And I have to tell you, I love that my office consultation hours are by far my favorite time of teaching, actually getting to sit down one-on-one with a student, hear a little bit more about their story, hear a little bit more about what their aspirations are, and then be able to help them with concrete steps. So yeah, it's by far the most fun. It's my favorite part of teaching is my office hours, believe it or not.
And then, Dr. Murphy, while you had the mic, I appreciated earlier that you mentioned being a first generation university goer in your family, which is very common for our students who come to St. Thomas. And just from that experience for you, I guess you've already kind of answered a little bit about the resources that are available, but if knowing that there are likely first generation students, prospective students watching today, any kind of words of advice or comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, because one of the things when you're a first generation university student, your family might be really enthusiastic and very supportive, but they don't always know they don't have necessarily the experiential capital, if you will forgive the term. They don't have the experiences themselves to be able to really guide you always in all the ways that you need to be guided, even though they may be fully supportive and enthusiastic. They just might not know the answers. So for students like that, I would just extra emphasize St. Thomas University has a plethora of resources available, not just the academic support services, but also the counseling services, because a university degree, and especially if you don't have anybody in your family who you can ask for knowledgeable advice from, it can be quite stressful. So it's important to access those services as well if you need them, because they can help either keep you on track or get you back on track. And one of the things that I always emphasize to my students is that it's important to me that they get those supports, because if they aren't accessing the supports that they need, that affects their academic performance. So it's not something to be shy about. Those services are actually available at St. Thomas University, and students who access them find that they're better able to perform academically. And so that's what we're all searching for. So I would say, take advantage of those extra supports that are available, that your family, they might want to provide them. They just might not have the experience to be able to provide them in the ways that you need.
Great, thank you. Ethan, just remind me, did you say you are doing a double major?
Yes, I'm honoring in great books and majoring in political science.
Okay, so I'm going to bring the next question to you, but even before I do that, I'll put you on the spot for a moment, because I just realized we're using terminology that we may not have actually explained thoroughly. So the difference between a minor, and Brianna mentioned earlier, she came to STU and didn't know what the difference. So difference between a minor, major, and honors. How comfortable with you if I put you on the spot for explaining those?
Yeah, for sure. I'll give it my best shot. So here at STU, you have the option to honors, major, and minor. So a minor is a certain amount of credit hours in a specific subject. So you have a certain amount of credit hours with Dr. Fredericks in the sociology department, or with Dr. Shannon Brooke Murphy in the human rights department, and that'll accumulate to a minor. It's the same thing with a major, and there's different requirements for each major. So for me, I'm getting a major in political science, which means I have to take certain classes in certain different kind of areas of political science. So I take classes in things like political philosophy, constitutional politics, international relations, just to make sure that I have an honest understanding of the discipline. And then after that, there's the next step, which is the honors program. And so what the honors program is, it's different for each subject, but for the great books department, we write an honors thesis. And what this looks like, it's similar to kind of a graduate program where you would write some sort of thesis for your work, but this is almost like a test run for that. And so in the Great Books program, you take honors seminar courses, where right now I'm in an honors seminar course with 6 other students, and we're discussing one thing for the whole semester. And it's a book by Machiavelli. And what that looks like is you have an expert in the field, which is Dr. Moore. He's written books on Machiavelli, and you're with only 6 other students, and you have these seminar courses where you really get to dive deep in your subject. And then in my 4th year, so next year, I'm going to write an honors thesis. And what that's going to look like is you're going to have an honors supervisor, which is a professor who's going to mentor you through the process of writing a large paper. And these honors theses range in size depending on the program, but they can get pretty long sometimes. And so you have professors kind of guiding you through that process of what does it actually look like to write something this big on one subject in an undergraduate degree. And so, like I said, this kind of gives you an idea of maybe grad school is an option for you if that's something you're interested in. You kind of give it a test run here at St. Thomas before you move on. And you get a mentor in your undergraduate degree, which I cannot stress enough is pretty unique to here at STU. Just having those small class sizes and having that opportunity to have a professor kind of walk you through that process is an opportunity that I'm taking advantage of next year, and I'm kind of really excited to get started on. So I hope that answered the question.
Absolutely did. I was kind of chuckling to myself, like, for those who are watching, I had not prompted that question to Ethan ahead of time. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I could not have scripted a better answer, I don't think, if I had had an hour to prep. So thanks very much. All that was the lead into the next question that came in. I had a prospective student athlete who's asking about your opinion on being able to be a successful varsity athlete and someone doing a double major.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So like I said, it's a real honor to be a varsity athlete here at STU. It's something that I really enjoy, like I said. So it's something that I thought I wanted to prioritize when I was coming to STU. It's something I want to try out. And so I run for the cross country team which means that we practice probably, 4 days a week as a team. And then, the other days of the week, you do things on your own. And so it is a daily thing for me. And I know for each team and each coach, it's different. But in my experience, it's a daily thing that you fit into your schedule. But like I said earlier, the coaches are very understanding that your degree comes first. Your educational experience here at STU is always priority. But on the other hand, when you have to go away for tournaments, so just the other weekend, I had to travel to Moncton to run in our AUS championship meet. And that meant that I had to leave class a little bit early. But one of the beautiful things about St. Thomas is you get these professors in these small classrooms where you can feel comfortable to go up to them and say, hey, look, I have this AUS championship meet. I need to leave class 20 minutes early. Is that okay? And even from that small conversation, my professor kind of understood. They were like, oh yes, absolutely. Best of luck. Email me and let me know how it goes. And then he emailed me later and was like, here's what you missed in the last 20 minutes of class. And so from my experience, it's been really fruitful to understand that professors understand that you have priorities as a student athlete to make sure that you're, competing at your best and you have those opportunities in your university career. And then your coaches also understand that, if you have to miss a practice because you have to write a big exam the next day, or if you're just feeling really swamped and overwhelmed, you can kind of do practices on your own time. That's always an option too. So I find it kind of a really fruitful experience for me to be both a student and an athlete here at STU. And I think that it's really doable and a really fun experience too.
Great, thank you. Maria, you mentioned you're from Quito, Ecuador. And maybe it's because I'm getting hungry, but I have to say it's home to one of my favorite sushi restaurants in the world, the Noe. The experience you had though, coming out of high school, obviously they're not only looking to choose a university for your studies, but also a country, because you would have lots of different options available to you. Keep in mind that we have people who have signed in from right here in Fredericton, across New Brunswick, across Canada, and around the world. I'm curious if you might just be able to comment about why you chose Fredericton, why you chose St. Thomas University.
Yes, for sure. I definitely chose Fredericton and St. Thomas because I felt that it was such a safe city. It was a very tight-knit community, so you basically know everyone. So I would definitely say that safety was one of my priorities. And therefore, I chose St. Thomas because the community is very small. You get to know everyone. There are different services like Safe Walk or Safe Ride if you ever feel like you need that extra support to feel a bit safer. So I would describe like Safe Ride as a one-way taxi service. So if you ever stay on campus and then need a ride back home, they can do that and it's for free. You just have to show your student ID. I would also say that I chose St. Thomas because everyone was extremely friendly when I was asking questions related to admissions and like that kind of stuff. So I knew that it was a very tight-knit community. Although I have a bit of a problem with like cold weather, I would definitely say that on campus, there are different supports. Like for example, the International Students Office is hosting a winter warm-up where students donate gently used winter gear for first-year international students. So that is something that I did use during my first year. And we have like different activities like pumpkin carving, which is so amazing. I had never seen a pumpkin in my life before that. So it was extremely exciting for me. And that way, like you create a community, you create bonds with other people, and that way like you can get through the winter in a fun way and you don't feel like sad or like homesick, which are totally normal feelings, but definitely you have so many support systems and like supports in general here. So that's why I chose St. Thomas.
I always love my office that looks out over the courtyard, and I always love the first snowfall of the year when our new international students who are from warmer climates who may not have experienced snow before are first out to enjoy the snow. And then I'm always impressed by how quickly international students from warm climates acclimatize to winter. And I kind of joke, but at the same time, it's the students who I see like in their pajamas or their shorts going from the residence hall over to the dining hall. And I look again, and it's the international students from warm climates who are doing that in the middle of February. But, Dr. Murphy, with the human rights program, a number of students have done double majors, and so Ethan gave us a really good description of what's the difference between a minor, major, and honors. But I'm interested from your perspective as a faculty member, how doing a double major might benefit a student in your classes from a view of a different discipline being brought into the discussion around human rights in your classes. I don't know if I'm articulating the question quite properly, but that's how I'm interpreting it.
Well, Ryan, first I would say that human rights is an interdisciplinary department. So our department chair, Dr. Amanda DiPaolo, is a trained political scientist. Dr. Christina Shirley and myself, we are trained in law. We have some part-time faculty who are trained in sociology, social anthropology, political economy, etc. So it's an inherently interdisciplinary program. Human rights is an inherently disciplinary field. All fields need human rights defenders. So I think the double major, we have a lot of double majors, or an increasing number of double majors in human rights and something else, because human rights is very complementary to so many other fields. And by the same token, the other major that a student brings in different methodologies, different frameworks, different ways of understanding things that can be really helpful and also interesting in a class when you have people who are doing human rights and something else. It can just make the conversations or discussions so much more interesting when you have somebody who's majoring in economics and they can bring an economic perspective to human rights, and somebody else who's majoring in history who can bring a historic perspective on to what we're studying in human rights. So I'm not sure if I've answered your question the way you had wanted or the way you had envisioned, but I would say it's very, very complementary. And we often have double majors. I would almost even describe human rights as the ultimate double major. We have people from great books, history, philosophy, political science, international relations, economics, criminology and criminal justice is a real big one that's often a double major with human rights, law, politics, and society, communications and public policy or journalism, sociology, women's and gender studies, gerontology, environmental studies, indigenous studies, education, social work, psychology. We get everybody coming through, and also an increasing percentage wanting to double up and enhance their major in a maybe more traditional discipline with a major in human rights, and they tend to do very, very well indeed.
Yeah, I think that that absolutely answered the question. And I would say it also kind of raised another thought for me, is just around the the distinctive advantage at St. Thomas of the interdisciplinary approach to study in undergraduate Bachelor of Arts, in the sense that where we are uniquely focused on social sciences, well, liberal arts in general, social sciences and humanities, more specifically with fine arts and some science courses in there as well. But that interdisciplinary approach that allows for students to not only dabble in various disciplines, but also then, while concentrating in one or two, see the real benefit of that overlap in their studies. So yeah, thank you very, very much. Dr. Fredericks, I'm going to throw the next question over to you. Now, I guess you were at STU, correct? And then spent some time away, and then coming back. So what's something that surprised you about St. Thomas when you returned, that that you may not have either experienced before, or something like a different observation that you may have had, and the evolution of STU as it is now?
Yeah. I mean, STU grew a lot from when I was a student to when I came back as a professor. So, it used to have a big field on the top level, which was reasonably useless actually. And now it has this beautiful building, this gorgeous study hall that I love, just like Ethan loves going to sit in and look at the river. So we grew in terms of that, but we also diversified in terms of our programs. And so, new programs like criminology and human rights had started up, between the time I was a student and came back as a faculty member. And I also saw more professors that engage in work across those departments. And so you see connections between professors in sociology with folks in human rights who do similar work. And so we can reference each other's work and talk about the connections between courses. And so I think I saw a more collaborative approach to trying to help students see the connections between departments and what they're learning and how they can put all those pieces together to really understand whatever social problem is of interest to them. And I think that commitment is pretty unique because in a larger university, we wouldn't necessarily know what people are doing in other departments. So I was happy to see that development when I returned.
We're closing in on our time, but we've had a couple of questions about residents. So I'm going to look to Ethan and Maria. Just, I'm sorry, I can't remember if you've both lived in residence. Yep. Okay. So students who are looking to come to St. Thomas and are considering residence or not, just some words of advice or your thoughts. Maria, maybe you first and then Ethan.
Yes, so I would definitely recommend that you live in residence at least during your first year, especially because you get assistance from residence advisors and coordinators, which are upper year students who are trained in like mental health, and they have been trained to like communicate effectively in like community settings. So like they help you like develop that sense of community and especially a tight-knit community. And if you ever have a problem, if you're ever feeling like homesick or just like not good, feeling a bit blue, you can always go talk to them and they will guide you and they will point the correct resources that you can access. Also, like I would definitely recommend international students to live in residence because that way you can make so many friends, you can learn about so many things and the resources that are available. So definitely I would encourage you. And also like I'm still friends with my first year roommate and she really guided me and helped me through like culture shock and like definitely she introduced me to so many people that I'm still friends with, and that is something I will forever cherish. So definitely living in residence is a wonderful experience.
Great, thanks. And Ethan, just as I turn it over to you, I'll add a little side question on this. If you can talk about your experience with the food in the dining hall.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with Maria. I think, look, living in residence is, I think, the best way to meet people when you first come to STU. So I lived in residence and now I live off campus, but all of my roommates are some of my best friends that I've met in residence. When you live in residence, one of the best parts is actually meal hall because, you know, as a student, you have all these new stresses. As being a university student, you've got like papers and assignments and tests and things like this, and those kind of take up your mind. But having things like meal hall makes it so you don't have to worry about like cooking or grocery shopping or all that stuff. And I had a very good experience in meal hall. Admittedly, I'm someone who eats a lot, but I can like blame it on being a student athlete, I think. And so the best part about meal hall is you can eat as much as you like, and the food is really great. We have award-winning chefs. And one of the best parts about it is because STU is a smaller community, the meal hall serves a smaller community of people. And so they can diversify their options. They can be, you know, really fancy some days and have really like the award-winning meals that our award-winning chef kind of won his awards for. You'll serve those to the students. And then that's not an experience you get at a lot of different kind of institutions. So I had a really great experience with meal hall, and it's really helpful kind of in a practical way to make sure that students can focus on their studies in their first year and kind of make that transition into university.
Well, I appreciate that on a Saturday morning, I'm not the only one who's thinking about food. With that, I'm going to thank each of you for participating this morning. It's been wonderful spending time with you, and I know our prospective students who are watching have benefited certainly from your insight, your words of wisdom, and the questions that you've been able to answer. I know for myself that this has been a really good example of just even the dialogue between faculty and student. You can see that this panel is, I feel at least, a good flow of dialogue, and you can see that there's a real camaraderie between faculty and students. So in and of itself, it was an example of a classroom experience in a small way.